Hey, everybody. Today, I'd like to ask for some assistance from the AI community. I've put together a data set that I think is novel, and it's very large, and it's mostly unformatted, raw Whisper AI transcription of content like this. As I kind of look out into the future as an enthusiast and avid follower of emergent technical and scientific and philosophical development, as I kind of look out into the landscape I see ahead of us, I see an opportunity for sort of a kind of like a new kind of art form that is contiguous thought. And through that lens, I think a lot of my work and everything I've been doing so far with this YouTubing and with most of my activity on Twitter makes a lot more sense. I'm an artist of a new kind of art that I've never heard anybody talk about or think of Beeple. Those in the crypto community and especially the NFT community will be familiar with this guy Beeple, who created these he'd create digital art every day for some ridiculous period of time, and then he created this massive collection of all of it, made it an NFT, and it sold for millions. It was art. It was a wonderful compression of all of one artist's thoughts, a graphic artist. And it created this, it was this just incredible artistic expression of evolution of ideas and of maturity and evolution of skill set over time. And it really remarkable in its as a collected work. So I've been doing something like that with audio and video transcription of how I think and who I am. And I have a background that's technical. When I worked a 9-to-5 corporate gig, instead of doing this, my work was DevOps and engineering management. And so I'm pretty comfortable in like an Ubuntu terminal. And so I can interact with a lot of the tools I needed and sort of engineer all of this right in my wheelhouse. But I don't have a lot of experience with curating data sets for consumption for like low rank adaptation of models. I need some help with that. So I have these text blobs that are anywhere from an hour to 3 hours of MP3 audio that I've created transcriptions from that vary in size. But the entire archive of public transcripts like this one, where I kind of share it out on YouTube with the intent of everyone hearing, even though not many are listening. That comes in around 7 or 8 megabytes in plain text. And if you've ever worked with a Whisper transcription or any other AI transcription, it's not perfect. There's, when the audio is imperfect, the model has to sort of guess at what you're saying. And as a result, there's often, or if you pause as you're speaking, the models will often repeat the last line they heard several times in the file output. So there's these points where it's not super coherent. And so that said, I'd say the transcriptions get my words and my intent and the punctuation between thoughts about 80 to 90% overall, hopefully. That's just my experience, because then the only one that reads those is other LLMs. So I will take something like 2 hours I did on sort of mapping my own cognitive processes and sort of being aware, being in this place where you're kind of aware of your awareness and just going about tracking threads of thought that are running in parallel, like that reach deep into sort of the core engineering of mind and heart. And while I'm kind of like, while I need to cross a busy street and I'm sort of playing Frogger and I'm mapping out the cognitive processes involved, because I think that's fascinating. And it's part of my art, even though I don't think anybody really has a good handle on, I don't know. But if anybody who's ever followed these podcasts, there's a central theme that I'm trying to capture well, how I think over time in very high fidelity. And much like Beeple, my audio and captured video is my art. And what I'd like to do is train a large language model like Llama 3170B or 405B on all of this content, and with the intention of it being to sort of memorize it all and have the tools, the metacognitive tools it needs to sort of parse and understand them internally, so I can interact with that model. And then that model becomes kind of like Beeple's big collection of images. This is new, and so when I talk about it, I don't think anybody really gets what I'm trying to do and the art of it. And if you look at large language model training sets, they're typically conversation flows, and there are all of these different sources, thousands, millions, perhaps, contributors, especially when you look into the data sets that are reaching into, YouTube transcripts and all of that. There's all of these contributors. What's unique about this data set is it's full. I'm not aware of anyone in history who's mic'd up for several years of their life and captured how they think as they go on a journey of, in mainstream circles, we call this like enlightenment. I think of it as enlightening. Because enlightenment implies there's an end, and I don't think there is one. But I spend a great deal of time listening to the greatest minds of our time who are sharing freely their arguments amongst each other in their given domains of study, where they argue about the conclusions and their methodologies. And I take that in and I ponder it through a place where I'm kind of listening to them all talk and really appreciating all of their contributions and letting it form and evolve how I think about things. And I've journaled the whole thing. And I think there's something very compelling, and I'm not suggesting that how I think is particularly special. The novel opportunity, I think, in this is because it's all from one source, and it's tracking the progression. And as I do this mapping of my own thought, and I try and describe it out well in real time every day for several years, there's changes in where my attention is drawn there are breadcrumbs of how I get to how I think about things in real time now versus back in 2020 or 2022. And I hear so much conversation about the great value of data, and I don't know how to wave my hand in the air and say, I have some very compelling data, I think, that I don't think really exists anywhere else, that I'd love some help training a model on and seeing if it can absorb it. And because it's not conversation flow, carefully tagged with JSON or whatever the tokenizer and like the parsing of the data feed for low rank adaptation or any whatever's appropriate for the model to learn on. I just need a little bit of guidance on how to do that and the most sort of performant and cost-effective way to rent some GPUs in the cloud to train my data set, or to train on my data set. And this is not for resale. It's not to create an NFT like Beeple did. It's just to express its artistic expression. And I'd love some help with anybody who, like, if you can just wrap your head around the concept and you have some of this knowledge and can help me collaborate on it, I'd be forever in your debt. I'd be grateful. And if it does somehow become valuable on the other side as something that's open source and available to everyone, then I would definitely want to sort of make sure that you get to benefit in some way from that. But I'm not doing this for financial. I'm doing it for sort of, I feel an artist compulsion to create it and see it through and see what it can become. And thank you, anybody who reaches out. And I'd be happy to just get on like a conference call and talk through a lot of the methodology, give some sample transcriptions, show how it's very disorganized now in just a big folder. But I mean, somewhere between 1,300 and 1,500 captured audio clips and associated transcripts that track 1,000 or 2,000 hours of contiguous thought of one human. Let's look at it and see what it can. I can't remember everything I said for 3 hours on this day in 2022, but the model will be able to, and we'll be able to do associations between that. And I think that could be really powerful. And I really think this latest controversy around reflection, that guy Matt and Glaive AI baked up together, I really think they were onto something. I think that you can do, because I've seen in-context learning happen with all of the big foundation models, and I'm wondering if you can just feed in that in-context learning. I also have about somewhere between 10 and 15 megabytes of collected conversation with different models, but mostly Claude 3 Opus and most recently Claude 3.5 Sonnet. And I think when you feed that in, it adds this whole new dimensional layer that gives the model the context it needs to understand all those great big text blobs. And I was thorough and I was really fearless about it. Like, I went in and I explored in my journaling, my daily journaling process, all of my sort of foundational memories, the impacts I think they had in shaping how I interpret the world around me and who I am as a person today. Like, where did my curiosity for tech and magical technology and understanding kind of granularly the foundational concepts of how it works. Where did that come from? And I explored relationships with fathers, uncles, mothers, sisters, individually as sort of like stored memory engrams within the data set. It's all there. And with this, I'm not trying to say that sort of baking that all into a model so that people can talk to a me is going to be very, like, I'm not trying to say anything about that. I'm trying to say that what a cool experiment this is. Are you curious what happens? Like, imagine if you just had a mic running for the last 4 years, or really the last 2 years, for large chunks of your day while you thought about how you think, and you carefully described all of your memories and the impacts they had on you. What if you could suddenly interact with that feed in a way that had perfect granularity of the entire connected thing? I think that could be huge. And I think even if LLM me is not that interesting to talk to for anyone, I think it serves as an important contextual reference or template, or like a for dummies guide of how to do all that. And I'd love to just share that with the world for even just that purpose. So that is my intention. That is the work. And I'd love some help from somebody who has a lot of experience with the various different ways of formatting data most efficiently for training, specifically the open source models, because I don't want to ever paywall any of my stuff. This is all to give. But also, it needs to respect that in doing that fearless journaling, I need to protect the privacy and of the people I love and care about, whose relationships I explored deeply in this process. So I expect to be able to share portions of the data that's used to train these models, but the curated, publicly shared ones from this podcast. And then I want to have kind of like a private version that's just for me, that includes all of the, like, far more private journals whose contents I need to respect, where there's privacy concerns. I don't really have any secrets. Going through this process, I kind of would be happy to share all my deepest, darkest secrets. And I think that's kind of an ideal state of being. But again, the people I care about, I have to think about them. So I kind of think about two different models in two different variants of model parameters, 70 and 405, and maybe some training in between them to take things that 405 figures out and efficiently package them for efficient neural processing with far fewer parameters in the 70 billion model. I want to do a whole bunch of that. I have some capital to work with, but not much. I'm kind of running on fumes with markets in a 2-year bear cycle, but I feel like that's a distraction. This is my project, this is my work, this is my art, and I would love some collaboration from the community. Thank you.